Right now, a pair of hours-long standoffs today. One in Beloit, another in rural Sauk County. We have an update on both straight ahead.
And the publisher of a Madison LGBTQ magazine says they are continuing to be the target of vandalism.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now at 6.
Thank you for joining us. The heat is still making the headlines tonight, and this isn't the worst of it yet.
On top of the hot and humid weather, there is a chance for some storms tonight before things warm up again. Let's go right to Chief Meteorologist Gary Canalti, our first alert forecast. Gary?
Eric, we're actually benefiting from storms that pass to our south and west. Right now, a visible cloud track actually shows clouds coming in, not a lot in the way of precipitation, but the storms have dived to the south. So the severe weather threat right now is staying to our south, but the cloud cover is keeping our temperatures just a little cooler here in southern Wisconsin. Now, as we take a look at Doppler track, you can see nothing imminent across southern Wisconsin, but some storms are starting to fire up in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa that could move eastward and give us the threat for severe weather later on tonight. There's a slight risk of severe thunderstorms from Madison westward, a marginal risk east of Madison, but we also have severe weather threats for tomorrow for mainly central Wisconsin and again for Friday, but it's doubtful the thunderstorms will even fire up around here, so we'll just have to wait and see whether or not we can get the storms to develop. If they do develop, they could bring heavy rain. Flash flood watch in effect west of Platteville to Lone Rock to Camp Douglas line. Heat advisories are in effect for much of southern Wisconsin from tomorrow afternoon through Friday evening, but southwestern Wisconsin, including Crawford and Grant counties, are under excessive heat warnings. Right now, temperatures are in the middle 80s for the most part, but dew point temperatures are around 70, so it feels like temperatures are around 90 over southeastern Wisconsin, but areas to the west that have had some rain have cooled off a bit. Look for thunderstorm threats to end early tomorrow morning, and then it'll just turn partly sunny, hot and humid with a high of 94. Tomorrow's heat index could be in the 102 to 107 degree range. Later on, I'll take a look at when we can expect a break in the heat.
All right, Gary, and heat index values of 100 to 110 are possible across southern Wisconsin over the next few days.
But what do those numbers actually mean for you? Meteorologist Dave Caulfield is out on the weather patio and a heat index near 90, sorting it all out for us. Dave?
Well, Charlotte and Eric, it is still steamy out here across southern Wisconsin and getting steamier over the next couple of days. But what do we mean when we actually talk about heat index? So we are looking at heat index values right now. If we could switch over to max 2 at your earliest convenience, we can talk about just exactly what these numbers actually mean. We are apparently on max 2. So we're really talking about how much your body sweats, the humidity's impact on how much your body sweats. And so when your body actually does sweat, it cools down your overall body temperature, but when it's really humid outside, your body really can't sweat to the ability that it's used to. So that keeps your internal body temperature, or your skin body temperature, a little bit warmer than normal, and that can cause some heat-related illnesses. And when we talk about how we get these numbers, we take the air temperature and also the dew point temperature. We put them into a very long equation, and basically the higher the dew point, the higher the actual air temperature, the higher the heat index value is. So right now we're looking at heat index values right around 90 degrees because of air temperatures in the 80s and it feeling a little bit warmer than that. But once we start getting into the 105 to 110 range, which is definitely possible over the next couple of days when it comes to heat index values, heat exhaustion and heat cramps can really set in quickly, and also some heat stroke is possible at times. So we need to remember that if we are out and about in this hot and humid weather over the next few days, to take frequent breaks and stay in the shade as much as possible, and of course stay hydrated.
Dave, thank you. And during this hot weather, make sure to check on elderly neighbors, friends, or family members. Local organizations have been doing welfare checks for patients to make sure they're okay. They say some call for help saying they don't know how to use their air conditioning. So please be sure to check on anyone you know who may need some assistance.
Madison School District also choosing to close all summer school programs on Friday because of the heat. According to a Facebook post, the decision to close will also impact all enrichment courses, extended school year programs, YRC programs, and Madison school and community recreation activities at summer school sites. A 29-year-old woman is safe, and a wanted man police consider dangerous is in custody this evening after about a 10-hour standoff down in Beloit today.
Police are crediting a tip from a community member and a tactical team formed with Beloit and Janesville officers with the peaceful surrender of 32-year-old Alexander Duke of Rockford. Madeline O'Neill tells us what comes next from Beloit.
This is the street where the standoff happened, in the apartment of a woman who police say had an intimate relationship with the suspect in the past. Duke is arrested on previous felony charges as police investigate whether or not to add new charges from what happened here today.
About 4 in the morning, I go to take my fiance to work, and that's when we start seeing the fire rescue crews start pulling in, start parking in this area right here.
When Beloit resident and Marine Edward Dubois noticed this.
I was seeing gentlemen walking around in gear that I deployed in, and that's what got me a little concerned.
He knew whatever the situation was, it could go either way anytime.
I do have training in emergency medical techniques and such, and if anyone needed to provide that, I was ready to volunteer.
Police were ready too.
Well, it could always go either way.
The call came in just before 1 a.m. that Alexander Duke, a wanted man police had been searching for since late March, had entered an apartment building on Burton Street where a woman lived.
This guy has really terrorized Rockford and Beloit. Both departments have been looking for him feverishly for several months, and he's shown his propensity for the use of firearms and really a lack of sense of safety for others. So I think it was definitely a good person to get into custody and get him out of here.
Police say Duke had warrants out for incidents in both Beloit and Rockford. Kidnapping, sexual assault, and recklessly endangering safety.
The first-degree reckless injury complaint involves an incident here in Beloit in which he pointed a gun at this victim and fired a shot off next to her head.
The same victim who was in the apartment with Duke Wednesday. Part of the reason police used a tactical team and negotiators to get Duke and the woman out of the apartment peacefully at about 10:45 a.m., leaving police happy the situation went the way it did.
I really have to credit the approach of our initial responding officers and supervisors in assessing this and taking the approach that they did versus trying to just immediately make contact in a more aggressive fashion and create a situation that nobody really wants to have. So I think the way they approached it was critical to how it ended.
Police don't believe this was a hostage situation at this time, but they are interviewing the victim. She doesn't have any visible injuries on her. Reporting in Beloit, Madeline O'Neill, News 3 Now.
Another standoff today, this one in rural Sauk County in the town of Delona, lasted 2 hours this afternoon. Deputies say 19-year-old Andrew Cusick from Wisconsin Dells was breaking things inside a home on Oakleaf Lane and fired off a round. When officers arrived, the man refused to come out, but after 2 hours of negotiations, he eventually surrendered without incident.
Madison police are looking for a suspicious red van after a woman says 2 men in the vehicle stared at her and followed her. The woman told police she was on her daily run on Felland Road on Madison's northeast side about 3 p.m. yesterday. She said that red van slowed down to about 20 miles per hour in a 45 zone. So she ran up to a driveway hoping the men would think she was at her own home. The woman said she saw the van come back in the opposite direction, so she left her normal route and ran through the woods back to her home.
If these were people who were up to no good, whether they were going to do something with her, at least we have that information now and we can perhaps arrest them if that's the case, or if we can rule out that there was really any criminal intent here, that there was something else going on.
Neighbors were able to provide Madison police surveillance video that matched the woman's description of that van. Anyone with information is asked to call the Madison Police Department.
The publisher of Madison's LGBT magazine says he's frustrated after having to clean up graffiti several times a month on the boxes where you can pick up his publication. Rose Schmidt is here to explain.
Yes, well, Charlotte, if you ever walk along State Street or near the Capitol Square, you've probably seen the boxes that hold dozens of magazines like this one. This is Our Lives magazine, Madison's LGBT publication put out every other month. But publisher Patrick Faribaugh says he's now had to clean up 7 boxes within the last 2 weeks. Sometimes people kick the boxes over or steal them. He routinely also finds them spray painted with graffiti, finds LGBT slurs written on the magazine's inside, anti-gay stickers, and religious pamphlets.
Targeting a media like ours, I think, is trying to, whether it's conscious or not, send a message that you're meant to be beneath me or beneath how I see myself. So whoever's doing it views us as lesser or views us as I think often not even having a right to exist.
You may remember a rock was thrown through the Our Lives magazine office in May of last year. Faribault says his office was actually vandalized 3 times. So for safety reasons, he and his staff now work from home. And with the frequency of the vandalism, the Our Lives staff is now considering filing a police report. But Faribault says the one rainbow in this situation is that community members have been trying to alert him when they see these boxes vandalized, so he is grateful to them.
It has been a busy week for former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. On Monday, he announced he'd accepted a full-time position starting in 2021 with the Young America's Foundation. Today, President Trump announced he was appointing Walker to the board of trustees of one of the world's most highly regarded think tanks. Walker is set to join the board of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars in the Smithsonian Institute. It is a 6-year appointment. Still ahead tonight, a major roadway reopens after months of construction.
Plus, we are continuing our Restaurant Week preview tonight, featuring a Wanakee restaurant whose owner says they never expected to serve food. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Good news for anyone who travels through Middleton. The $1.5 million University Avenue construction project is now officially complete. That work started in late April, spanning from Cayuga Court to Park Street in Middleton. The project included water and sewer repairs, new traffic signals, intersection improvements, new curbs, and repaving. The intention was to wrap up by the 4th of July, but it was pushed back due to the weather. We continue our preview of Restaurant Week with another story behind the menu. Now, Monday, we told you about the executive chef at Avenue, Alfredo Tamayo, and his amazing, unexpected journey to Madison.
Well, tonight, an owner who never expected to serve food, and it all comes back to his family and other families in his community. Danica Lewis introduces us to the man behind Lone Girl.
Watching here, nowhere else, watching here. This is only gonna work if we're kind of synonymous with a community where they have to believe in who we are. Nice job, big guy.
If he didn't have enough to manage.
A little late,
Kevin Abercrombie spends most of his precious free time reining in a bunch of 4th graders.
Got it, every time, start there.
Including his twin boys.
Good, back up a little bit.
The coaching part comes down to 4 simple rules.
I want the kids to play hard, I want them to pay attention, I want them to respect their coaches and their players and their equipment. And what's the 4th thing?
Have fun.
Have fun, you got it right. Hands in, here we go. And you can say very much the same thing about the people that come through here as employees.
Lone Girl started simple too.
I got tired of buying everybody else's beer. So that'll be good.
But Abercrombie quickly realized he needed more to keep families coming in. He needed a menu.
Every day is a little scary. I call it healthy fear.
So he keeps coaching up a young staff that may have never worked in a restaurant before.
I'm gonna learn something from you. We moved up here about 8 years ago. I don't want them to be intimidated when I'm out on the floor walking around. That's my time to really learn about the business. Let me know. Be happy to be over. Yeah.
But none of this, or this,
Good swing, bud. Good swing.
is really about him.
My sons, we'll see. Twin boys at 9. They're running around focused on having a little bit more fun. Can't hit a ball out here, big guy. It's got to stay on your back foot.
Still, whether on the floor or the field,
Here we go. Everybody's ready.
Coach Abercrombie's leaving it all
All right, make a play, boys. Right now.
for them.
This entire endeavor is going to be about working for our families for a really long time.
And speaking of family, the namesake of Lone Girl is Abercrombie's 11-year-old daughter, Avery, who helps out at the restaurant in between softball games that, of course, her dad helps coach.
Busy guy, no doubt. Still ahead in sports as we get into the second half of this season. Speaking of baseball, it's tightening. Atop the NL Central of highlights from today's afternoon game at Miller Park. Straight ahead.
First, the heat and humidity stick around, and on top of that, we're keeping an eye on a chance for some storms overnight. Gary will have his full forecast next.
It's high.
Chief Meteorologist Gary Canalti joins us now with an updated forecast.
Yeah, the heat has broken at least a little bit over southwestern Wisconsin, where we've had some thicker clouds and also some rain. You can see that on the temperature spread. 73 right now in Dubuque, Iowa, but Madison still at 85, Rockford, Illinois at 87, and then you factor in the dew point temperatures that are around 70 degrees or a little bit above, and you're seeing heat index values into the upper 80s to lower 90s. These are pretty warm as it is, but they're going to be a little bit higher, in fact, probably a fair amount higher for tomorrow and Friday because of the possibility for less rain and more sunshine, and that will get the heat index values. This is Thursday at about 4 p.m. In the upper 90s to the lower triple digits. For Saturday, we're going, or for Friday, look at those heat indices up into the 105 to 110 degree range, probably our hottest day. Now on Saturday, it's all going to depend on where thunderstorms develop and how far south they move. By 4 p.m., the computer models have thunderstorms through the Madison area, dropping our temperatures. But notice just to our south, Rockford, with a heat index of 101 because they don't have the thunderstorms yet. Should the storms be delayed by a couple of hours, we're still going to be looking at triple-digit heat indices before the thunderstorms start to cool us off. There are heat advisories in effect for Madison, Milwaukee, and La Crosse from tomorrow afternoon into Friday evening. To the south, across parts of southwestern Wisconsin, Crawford and Grant counties, much of northern Illinois, including the Chicago area and much of Iowa, under excessive heat warnings. Then the possibility for heavy rain. Now, areas farther out to the west have picked up between 1 and 3 inches of rain over the last 48 hours from northern Iowa into western Wisconsin. Also, parts of southwestern Wisconsin got hit with a couple of inches of rain last night. Right now, the thunderstorm threat that moved out of Iowa moved south of Wisconsin. Very little made it into the southern part of the state, but now we're starting to see some showers and storms popping up here. They could become severe later on tonight and then reach us late tonight with the possibility for heavy rain and also some strong winds. So the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe thunderstorms about as far east as Madison, a lesser threat out to the east of us. Now tomorrow they have a slight risk of severe thunderstorms just north of Madison. Storms will develop where the boundary between the hot and the cool air will be in central Wisconsin, but it's likely that those will be far enough north not even to affect us. So if we don't get any thunderstorms at all, obviously we don't have a severe weather threat. Same thing for Friday. If we get storms to develop, there could be a threat for severe weather, but right now that's kind of iffy. You can see the rainfall amounts generally about a ½ inch, but in excess of 1 or 2 inches in heavier thunderstorms, and then additional rainfall on the way for Monday and Tuesday. Flash flood watch in effect for southwestern Wisconsin until 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So here's that forecast. Flash flood watch for areas west of Platteville to Lone Rock to Camp Douglas line. Heat advisory in effect from noon tomorrow until 11 p.m. for much of southern Wisconsin, and a heat warning for southwestern Wisconsin. Look for a low of 74 tonight. Some shower and thunderstorm chances toward morning. Those will end. Then it turns partly sunny, hot and humid. High of 94 tomorrow with the heat index from 102 to 107. Thunderstorm threat this evening in a few spots, and then late tonight into early tomorrow morning before the sun comes out and temperatures climb into the middle 90s. Lows tomorrow night only get into the upper 70s, and there's just an outside chance of a shower or thunderstorm. Highs in the mid 90s for Friday, probably our hottest day. And again, rainfall amounts spotty. Some areas nothing, other areas an inch or two. After that, though, you can see the alert days in the forecast through Saturday. A break in the heat as thunderstorms move through on Sunday. Much more comfortable weather for much of next week.
It was pretty warm to play football today, but these guys in Whitewater had a pretty good reason to do it. The story's coming up in sports. funny what a difference a couple of days can make. After Monday's loss, the Brewers to the Braves, there was plenty of grousing. But after 2 wins against Atlanta, hey, the Brewers are back in it. This afternoon in Miller Park, they gave Yasmani Grandal the day off, so Manny Pena steps in, and boy, does he have a day. This is his 5th homer of the season. Couple of hits, 3 RBI for Manny Pena as the Brewers jump on Braves starter Dallas Keuchel. And it's just about time for opponents to stop pitching to Christian Yelich. He did it again, his 34th homer of the season to tie the Dodgers' Cody Bellinger for the National League lead. Chase Anderson pitches into the 6th without allowing a run. Brewers hang on and beat Atlanta 5-4 to win the series 2-1. At Wrigley Field, the Cubs beat Cincinnati again to keep pace. Chris Bryant hit his 20th homer. Looks like Yu Darvish has figured things out with 6 scoreless innings. Final score, Cubs 5, Reds 2. So the Cubs maintain their lead in the Central Division now by 2 over the Brewers, 2.5 over the Cardinals. St. Louis beat Pittsburgh 6-5 this afternoon. The Brewers are headed on the road now. They'll start a 4-game series at Arizona tomorrow night. Can you imagine playing football in that heat today? Well, they did in Whitewater, as the Wisconsin Football Coaches Association All-Star Games are coming up this weekend in Oshkosh. The South All-Stars practiced this morning, taking every precaution they could to stay cool and still get their work done. They've had these football All-Star Games for more than 40 years now, and again this year they're playing to benefit Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Tonight, some of the young patients are visiting the players on the field at Whitewater. This is more than just a football game.
And that's why we're here. We're obviously here to play football, but that's the big key right there. So, I mean, it's crazy just to be able to play on their behalf. They're fighting. We're going to fight for them, too.
The kids raised, on our team alone, raised over $85,000. So we're just did an awesome job of fundraising, and each team has a goal of to get a certain amount of money to donate, and that's part of that's the reason why we're here and the reason why we get to do this.
There are 3 All-Star games in Oshkosh Saturday, starting with the 8-player game at 10 in the morning, the large school game to wrap up the day at 5. Do you think the Badger football team will be any good this season? Well, apparently a number of reporters who cover the Big Ten thinks the Badgers will be pretty average. The annual Cleveland.com poll of 34 reporters around the Midwest picked the Badgers to finish 3rd in the Big Ten West behind Nebraska and Iowa. Last year's champion Northwestern picked to finish 4th. The favorites in the East, Michigan, followed by Ohio State and Michigan State. Michigan, also the reporters picked to win the Big Ten championship. See that big pile of money on the table? That's what $10 million looks like. That pile of money now belongs to Hossein Ensan, who won the World Series of Poker this morning in Las Vegas. The winning hand, a pair of kings. First time a pair of pocket kings won the big prize in poker at about 3:30 a.m. Madison time. Ensan was born in Iran, emigrated to Germany 30 years ago, and won $10 million in the World Series of Poker. 2 kings, $10 million? That's $5 million a king.
He's gonna walk out of there with all that cash. He's just put it. Hope he brought.
I'm sure no one will notice.
Be careful walking out of there. Final check of the forecast, Gary.
You can buy some air conditioning with that. You can see thunderstorms to our south and to our east, but more starting to fire up in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. They'll be here later on tonight. Nothing imminent right now for much of southern Wisconsin. Temperatures range from the upper 70s, where they've had some rain, to the middle 80s here in Madison. Those dew point temperatures, though, are pretty high, so it feels like temperatures are in the mid-80s to near 90 degrees. And you can see temperatures in the mid-90s the next couple of days, but a break on the way for next week.
Thanks for joining us at 6.
Have a great evening, and we'll see you back here at 10.